Hey everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Landry Peden, and I'm sitting here. It is New Year's Eve 2024, and I just felt like I needed to do a more lengthy recap of this year since the 20 to 45 second, reel on Instagram just doesn't really do my last year any kind of justice. Um, Basically, sitting here reflecting on the last year, it was a year that definitely could have broke me. When I started 2024, I was in the fight for my life. I had just left an abusive relationship. I am battling a situation with my son, who is now 16. I can't really get into that for legal reasons, but I'm still fighting, and the truth will be revealed eventually. But I was alone. I was lost. I was afraid. And I was ready to just give up because I didn't know what to do. I had been living in Ohio for the last 10 years prior to January of 2024. And I had a beautiful home. I had beautiful neighbors, a beautiful neighborhood. My son was in an amazing school district. It was just all like going so well, except for what was happening behind the scenes. I was with a narcissist, and I had been with him for a little over 5 years, trying to get out. I knew within the first year that I had to get away, but it's not that easy. But finally, in December of 2023, I ripped the Band-Aid off and just said, screw it, I need to get out. And that's what landed me in Atlanta. So last year, 2024, January, I spent ringing in the new year alone and feeling sad and feeling sorry for myself. But then the resiliency, the evolution began. It was like one day I just woke up and decided that it's time to get out of my own way. For years, I had been silenced. For years, I had been taught to make myself small, to people please, to, walk on eggshells, don't make waves, just keep going about your business, do what you got to do to survive. And I got tired of living that way. I got tired of not living. And so now I look back and I'm like, holy crap. 2024 was an amazing year considering what it could have turned out to be. And so I hope that my story helps inspire somebody else that might have had a rough year or is apprehensive about going into this new year, 2025, that just stay the course, believe in yourself, and keep going no matter what. I look at 2024 as my rebirth year. I started with nothing. I literally left everything behind. I sold my home. I sold a lot of my things, and I just left them. So I told my old neighbors, I said, go ahead and take whatever you want. I gotta go. So I packed up a little trailer, just big enough to put my clothes, my dog stuff in there, and I towed it behind my little SUV with my dog in the back of the car, and we went down to Atlanta. And I'm going to say right now, Atlanta is definitely not for me. I'm not a city girl. I am from small town Michigan. I graduated with 116 kids. I can't stand traffic. And I'm 39 years old, so making friends is really hard in a giant city. But luckily, I'm a pretty, introverted person for the most part. I don't drink. I don't go out partying. So it has been kind of a blessing in disguise to learn to just be with myself and be with my feelings, because in the past I wasn't able to be alone. I have quite the story, which I'll get into another time. But, from those years in the past, I felt like I needed safety in somebody else. I felt like I needed protection in somebody else. I felt like I needed support from somebody else. and I was looking for it in the wrong places. So this last year, I haven't dated. I don't go out. I've traveled a lot, which I'll get into soon. But just being with myself has just been incredible. So I guess like the starting of the launch would have been, I went to the Ghost Clash. I'm a professional powerlifter. Most people are like, do you do this? I'm like, no, I don't do this, but squat, bench, and deadlift. I'm one of the strongest women in the world. I finished the 2024 season top 15 in the world for women. So, and that's all weight classes, all divisions. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, so it all started with Ghost Clash in April of 2024. That was one of my first meets that I did without my ex. He was always very controlling. He always had to handle me. He always had to just have his hands in something, and it drove me crazy. But Ghost Clash, I ended up having the best meet to date. I finished with 595 dots, which for you non-powerlifters, that's kind of how they do the scoring these days. It's body weight versus weight lifted. It used to be Wilks. I compete at 75 kilograms or 165 pounds. And I ended up finishing 6th overall. So that was really cool. It was like a couple hundred lifters. So that was really, really exciting. I think it was like over 200 lifters. Yeah. And then after that, I ended up going to Key West after the meet by myself. I ended up just kind of wandering around, doing what I wanted to do. And that was kind of the start of learning my independence. I was afraid at first because I was like, what am I doing? I'm going to Key West alone. But like, what better way than to just like enjoy time with yourself and like in paradise, right? So went to Key West. I ended up meeting a bunch of really cool locals. I picked up a couple of clients while I was there. I guess I'm like a walking advertisement, so that's kind of cool. And then we ended up, just kind of coming back and putting the nose to the grindstone. So when I got back from Ghost, I ended up having to get ready for the Abs Pro in Dublin, Ireland. So this was going to be a really exciting meet for me because I had I've never competed internationally. So I'm like, holy crap, like I'm representing the US, going overseas, like what? Oh my God, we're going to freak out here. So I ended up, it was at the end of May last year. I was handling an athlete over in Germany. So I got an opportunity to travel overseas, see how my body handled it, all of these things. And I got to see how the Abs series runs their meets, which I really, really liked it. It was fast paced. It was intense. It was really exciting. So I was very, very happy with that. So it made me even more excited to compete in that meet. So got back, continued my prep. Everything was going pretty well considering all the stress and multiple court appearances and things like that with my son. That was very exhausting, having to go through, and I'm still going through that right now. But training must go on, coaching must go on. So I got the opportunity in June to go to Niagara Falls to handle some of my athletes. That was really exciting. I had four girls that I was helping, and then I ended up with assisting my buddy Luke, who ended up winning the men 198 pound weight class. That was really, really cool. I was like so stressed out because like he's coached by my coach Trevor Jaffe, and I was like, no pressure, dude. Like because like handlers is like you could literally make or break somebody in a meet, right? So like if you've got a bad handler, like it could make the athlete like completely fall apart. So I take handling very, very seriously. And he ended up going 9 for 9, PRing everything. Like winning. It was just absolutely incredible. So I was like, thank you, Luke, for not making me look like a turd. So that was really fun. And then in July, I got to go out to Vegas, which I go to Vegas every year because I work for the USPA Powerlifting Federation. I am a board member on the USPA Foundation, so that's a really cool like entity. So we're the only powerlifting association that does any kind of like charity work as far as like giving back to the lifters. So what we do is we provide grant opportunities for people that can't necessarily afford coaching. They can't afford gym memberships. They can't afford like lifting equipment, and they can't afford to compete. So this way they have an opportunity to be on our platforms. You know, we ask them to volunteer at events, which is really exciting. To see all of these lifters all around the country coming out and helping and being a part of the federation. So yeah, every July I go out to Vegas to help out with drug tested nationals. So that's always a fun opportunity. So I get to see all my friends, like, you know, Vegas, it's a good time. You know, I got to like lift at a couple different gyms, which I really enjoy. And then after that, you know, we're getting ready. We're going overseas in August. So this was like happening fast. This was like Niagara Falls, Las Vegas, and then here we go to Ireland. Ho, ho, ho. So the competition was very, very high here. We've got women all over the world coming out, you know, and then it was just myself and Brianni for the Americans for the pro day. And there was a lot on the line, and I was really feeling good, like everything was gonna just like fall into place. And then it didn't. So basically, you know, the meet did not go the way that I had hoped. I ended up bombing out on squats. For those of you that don't know what that means, I was not able to successfully complete a squat, and we get 3 attempts. So they were calling me on depth. The wraps that I was using were a bit too tight, so I wasn't able to sit into the hole. So this kind of goes into, you know, making sure that everything is like good on meet day with like handling and everything. And that's my fault because I did not find a handler that, you know, I had a lot of time to kind of practice with or connect with. You know, for me to go overseas, it's very expensive. I can't afford to bring my coach. I barely afford to bring myself. Like, thankfully, like sponsors and things like that can help. But like to pay for another person, it's too costly. But you know, it is what it is. I couldn't hit depth. It happens. So I basically got disqualified, or I did get disqualified. I should say, not basically. But I finished the meet as a guest lifter. So I continued to bench and I continued to deadlift and finish the meet. So I was a little defeated because I was projected to potentially take the first place position if it had been a different day. But it's okay. We're fine. We're fine. But I didn't give up. So this gave me an opportunity to regroup. So when Abs had announced that I was coming over to compete, I ended up getting another invite from another professional powerlifting league that is over in Poland, the XPC. They had invited me over. There was quite a good amount of money that they were giving away. And I'm like, I mean, I'm alone. I got nothing to do. So I ended up having a client that lives in Scotland. Convenient. So after Dublin, I ended up going and staying with her. So she was actually competing in Nottingham shortly after I had just competed in Dublin. So I was going to handle her at her meet. And then from there, we were just going to kind of hang out and see what happens. So this was, I think August 26th. We did her meet. She had a phenomenal day. She absolutely killed it. I mean, she's coming back from injury, so like it was really cool to see her shine that day because it's so hard when something like that happens, like mentally. And she did absolutely incredible. and I'm super, super proud of her. And so we were hanging out in Nottingham. We went to Maid Marian's castle. That was cool. And then we went back up to Isle of Skye, Scotland. So we drove like all through the night. This is crazy, right? So we really wanted to see the sunrise at Isle of Skye. So we left Nottingham and drove straight through the night and got to Isle of Skye, which is something out of like Jurassic Park. Like the hills, the scenery, like everything, like it doesn't even look real. Like we went to some of these places that like we went to the Fairy Glen, which like the name itself would just give it away. Like I was expecting like fairies to be flying out of like the little caves and rock formations and all the things, and like it was just incredible. But and then the fairy pools was so cool. Like I'm a water person, and it was so cool to see, like you see mountains in the background and then this big open field and then just waterfall after waterfall after waterfall, and it's just breathtaking. It's something that like I will never forget. And then we took a water tour, like a boat tour, and went around Isle of Skye, and like I saw seals, I saw dolphins, like there was whales, like it was like the coolest thing. And I'm like in Braveheart country. I'm like, it's fine, like this is totally cool. And so I spent a ton of time like with her in Scotland adventuring, and like my like headquarters was out of Dundee, Scotland. That place was absolutely adorable. Like the architecture, the people, like everything. Like I met these really cool people while I was out walking by myself. Cause like this is crazy. Cause like here in the States, like I won't walk around by myself. Like I won't do it. No. Like I go to the gym and I go home because like people scare me. But in Europe, like I felt so safe. Like because nobody messed with me. First of all, like I'm built like brick shit house. Pardon my French, but I mean, I kind of stand out like a sore thumb over in Europe, in most places anyway. But the Scottish people were so kind to me, and like, I ended up going down to Glasgow, and I met some incredible people. There's Andy at Outcast Barbell in Glasgow, and then my friend Gemma and Carolyn, pretty strong in Glasgow. Like both of the gyms are just awesome. Like, you know, Andy's gym is more like hardcore, kind of like that old school powerlifting vibe, which I absolutely freaking love. And then Gemma's is like super adorable. Like it's like blacked out and then like neon pink lighting. So I'm like, everything girl, and I love it. So if you're ever in Glasgow, you've got a couple of gyms that I highly recommend. Um, but yeah, so I actually jumped in as a guest lifter at Andy's meet. It was like single lift meet, so you could do your squat, your bench, and your deadlift separately and win. So I did a guest lifter spot after. I'll have to rewind. So while I was in Scotland, before I did this guest lifter meet, waiting for Poland at the end of September, my friend Francesca, who I was staying with, was like, I hope that you're going to do some traveling while you're here because it's so cheap. Like, I'm not even kidding you. It's stupid cheap. Like, I was like, well, I can't afford it. She's like, yeah, you can. She's like, do you have Skyscanner? I'm like, what's up? And she's like, download it. You can find really cheap flights. And I was like, okay. And she was like, and download an app called Hostel World because then you can find cheap places to stay. It's like kind of like the Airbnb of hostels. Like you can find like reviews, like like what area it's in. Like there's like a chat group so you can see like who's staying there. Like you can connect with people. Like if you're solo traveling, you can find like people to go out to eat or whatever. And then she sent me a couple of like travel like train. What else was there? This Viator app to find like cheap, fun things to do in each place. And so that was super helpful. So one day I just sat down and I'm like, okay, I've got my few days in between now and Poland, where I could go and I could find gyms around the country, or around the world, I should say. And I was like, that might be cool. And so I found a couple of flights. So basically, I picked a week, and I like on Skyscanner, you can like find what days are the cheapest and like where, like what airports to fly into and like what countries and things like that. So I ended up booking flights from Scotland to Corfu, Greece, and then I went from Corfu to Athens, from Athens to Pompeii or Napoli, Italy, and then I took a train to Rome. And then from Rome, I flew to Barcelona, and I just stayed in Barcelona until I flew back to Scotland because I was exhausted by then. I was going to go to Madrid, but I was just like, I'm over it, and the beaches here are really cool, so I'm going to stay here. So let's go back to Greece. So I went to Greece, and oh my God. So I did this all by myself. Like, I totally solo traveled. Like, I literally packed a backpack with like 4 outfits. No toiletries, nothing, because I would just pick them up whenever I got to my hostel. And I booked a hostel in Corfu. So flew in that morning, ended up at this hostel, and kind of just like eased into the local area, because Corfu is more like it's just like an island, so there's not like a ton. They've got like a really cool downtown area, but I was staying kind of on the outskirts for my first day. But then I got on Viator and I found this really cool boat tour. It started at like 8:30 in the morning and went until 7:30 at night. And it was only like $55. And I was like, what? Because like here in the States, that would have been like a bazillion dollars. And I'm thinking, okay, like this is so cheap. It's probably going to be some stupid little boat, and it's going to be dumb, and it's going to be boring. But let me tell you. So we get on the boat, which is it's like a yacht, and there's 2 of them. So it was a double-decker boat. They had a DJ upstairs. They had a bar. They had food, like everything. And so I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. We get started and they do the whole toury thing. Like, they're like, here's the history of Corfu. Look at this celebrity's house. Like, blah, blah, blah. And like the views are just amazing. So we end up stopping at our first island, Antipakos, and we got to get off for a couple of hours and just explore. So that was so cool. Like, I got to eat some of the local food. I had this like amazing yogurt parfait bowl that was just to die for. Like, let me tell you, like, going to Europe has forever ruined food for me, because like the food over there is just so much better than the States. Sorry. Not sorry. But yeah, so I toured the island. There was a nice little beach that I went to. So I went and swam in the sea for the first time in Greece. That was so cool. And then from there, we got back on the boat. And it was kind of funny because you're like watching all these people and they're like hungover from like the night before. Because like people in Greece party hard, like real hard. And I'm like, I don't. So please don't kill me. So we get back on the boat, we're traveling around, and then we end up going to this beautiful cove that, like, oh my God, like, the water is like this turquoise, like, it's so clear, and the beaches are like white sands, and it's just like, it doesn't even look real. We're kind of going back to the like Isle of Skye, like, feeling, like, does not look real. And the captain opens up like the gates on the side of the boat, and they're like, go ahead, jump in. And they're like, we're going to fire up the barbecue. And then the DJ started playing, and we're like, what? So, of course, my ass is jumping in. So I dove off the boat. That was so much fun. And we were swimming for a couple hours and just like enjoying life. And then got back on the boat, traveled around. We went through a bunch of caves and just saw a bunch of just incredible scenery, just being out on the ocean. Just, oh my God, I can't even explain it. And then from there, I ended up jumping a quick flight over to Athens, where I got to drop into my first Greek gym in Athens. I really loved it. Odin's Sons. So it was a private gym. I love his attitude because he has that like old West Side vibe. So it's like invite only private gym. It's in like a basement, like in like Athens. And I'm like, this is so cool. I absolutely loved it. And they were so accommodating. Like they were like, anything that you need, like it's totally cool. And so I got to train there for a couple days. That was awesome. I was really glad for that. And then went and saw the Acropolis, which was really cool. I was kind of bummed because like they're not kidding when they say ruins. Like, so I'm a huge history nerd, and like I was so excited to see all of it. And it's like so much of it was under construction that I'm like, okay. But it was still really cool, like just being there and like just being a part of that, and just to say that I've been there, and like thinking about the people that, you know, lived there back in the day when it was just like this thriving area, you know, before it was modernized. So I'm kind of a dork, and I collect rocks as well. So I started collecting rocks in Corfu. So I collected rocks in Corfu, and then I collected rocks in Athens, and I have them with me. Okay, so then Athens, I will say Athens was super fun. My my hostel there was freaking bomb. Like I loved it. Like it was Athens Hawk, and it was right outside like the city center. So like I could walk everywhere. Like I walked to the Acropolis, like all the things. That place, if you're gonna stay in Athens, holy crap. So it was super cheap. I think it was like 20 or 30 bucks a night. But I had roommates, and it was really cool because it was two girls from Michigan, and I'm from Michigan, so I was like, oh my god, like it was really cool. But it was like 8 floors, and on the roof they had a DJ and they had a bar every single night. So they have events for the people that stay there, so you don't have to like go out if you don't want to. And it was a really nice way to meet people from like all over the world. So my last night that I was in Athens, so I was there for 2 nights. I did the Acropolis and all the sightseeing in the first day, and then I lifted the 2 days. And then the one day I just kind of did laundry because I only had a couple outfits. And but that last night I ended up going up to the bar, and I got to meet all these people. I met some people from like France and Australia. There's a lot of Australians in Athens for some reason. Well, there's a lot of Australians everywhere. Apparently, they do a lot of traveling. From the UK, like all over the place. It was so cool. And then, and I met a couple people from Chicago. So there was like, we've got Michigan, Chicago, and then Australia and all that. You know, it's fine. So it was really cool. That night, they ended up, there was a bartender. She was super cool. She was like, do you guys want to like see like a real nightclub? And we're like, sure, you know. And at this time, it's probably like 11 o'clock at night. And she's like, well, they don't get started till 3. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm in bed by like 9. Like, I'm already up past my bedtime. And, but I was like, you know what? I'll be a good sport. So we all like kept hanging out. And then 3 a.m. rolls around. And there's like 20 of us wandering the streets of Athens at 3 o'clock in the freaking morning. And we end up at this nightclub, and I mean, this place is so freaking cool. I can't remember what it's called, but like, it was packed, and people were just going nuts. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, but I was only there for an hour because then I was like, okay, I am exhausted, and I'm sober, and I need to go home. Like, and so there was a couple of us that were also like me, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna go home. So walked back with a few people. It was mostly the Americans. Like, I guess we can't hang. It's fine. And so then I left Athens, and from Athens I flew to Napoli. I did not spend any time in Napoli. That was not really what I wanted to do. So I went to Pompeii. That was like a big thing. So going back to me being a history nerd, I have been following a lot of like that type of history for quite some time. I really love like Italy, Greece, all of that. And the story of Pompeii is very tragic. So I really wanted to go and see it like in person. and it was intense, you know, like seeing it on like the History Channel, learning about it in school, like different documentaries, just does not do it justice until you actually show up in the city. Just the mummified bodies in the ash, the homes that used to have living people, like just the architecture. You could tell it was once just like an incredible city. And I had no idea how large this area is. Like, I showed up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it took me hours to go through it. And I mean, it was downpouring rain, but it was such a moving experience that I couldn't pass it up. And just so many pictures and memories. And I also did collect a rock there. It was a lava rock. So I do have a rock from Pompeii. But yeah, so that was a really cool experience. My first moment in Italy. And then, of course, that is the birthplace, Napoli, of the Neapolitan style pizza that we know today. So I had to get some. I know I'm a fitness person. Oh, I don't eat pizza. No, I do. I do. But it was amazing. And now comparing it to the pizza here, it's not. The pizza here is not the same. Sorry. It's close. I did find a place here in Atlanta that's very, very similar, but they do order their ingredients from Italy, so they doing it right. And then from Pompeii, I jumped on one of those fast trains, so it took me about, I think it was like 2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours to get from Pompeii to Rome. So I found a hostel that was like right outside the train station that had really good reviews. And it was super convenient because like Rome is a huge city, but it's very walkable. Like you don't want to take public transportation if you don't have to, because there's so many cool little like tucked away things, you know, around every corner that you don't want to miss anything. So I got there that evening and I ended up finding a traditional Italian restaurant, and I had the whole shebang, you know, the 5-course meal. And I remember, like, I was so worried. Okay, so, like, one thing that I noticed that's so different from here versus Europe is that nobody's in a hurry, especially when you go out to eat. So, like, here, it's like I feel like I have to like inhale my food, and the server's like, "Are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Can I bring you a check? Like, are you good? Are you good?" And it drives me freaking crazy. But over there, I panicked because I thought they forgot about me. So I'm like sitting there, and like I was like eating, and I'm like, and then I'm done, and then nobody's coming, and I'm like, and then I'm like looking around, and I'm seeing like everybody else that was there before me is still there, and I'm like, this is weird. I'm like, they're not trying to kick me out the door. Okay. So I ended up realizing that that's like how they do it. Like, you're supposed to enjoy your meal and not be rushed. And the other thing that I noticed, and I'm sure y'all from the United States can like relate, is here in the States, whenever you go out to eat, I swear to God, everybody's on their freaking phone. Like, every time I go out anywhere, I'll see couples on their phones, and I'm like, or like friends, like they're just texting and like not paying attention to each other. I'm like, what is the point? Like, this is stupid. So over there, I'm looking around and nobody is on their phone. None. Zero. Like, anywhere I went, I'm like, this is incredible. Like, people actually have conversations and like actually pay attention. Holy shit. And but yeah, so that was kind of a nice learning experience, just like seeing like the slower mentality, like the appreciation of food and company, you know, something that I don't see here as much. So then the next day I did the whole tour. So ChatGPT is a wonderful tool for traveling. So I asked, I've got 2 days in each country. Where should I visit? How do I keep it cheap? Blah, blah, blah. And so it told me to start out at the Vatican because that was going to take the longest. And so that's what I did. I ended up walking to the Vatican, spent probably 3.5 hours there. It was just absolutely incredible. Like to see the David, to see the Last Supper in real life, and just the amazing artwork of Michelangelo. Like, wow. I could have spent all day there, but I was like, I'm on a time crunch. I can't. But 3.5 hours still wasn't even enough, like, to take it all in. Just the beauty and the craftsmanship and the artistry, just, oh my gosh. So then from there, I continued to walk. I went and saw the Spanish Steps and the famous fountain. That was really cool because, again, I'm a water person, and it was really, really pretty. But there was, like, a ton of people. So I was like, ugh, this is annoying. Like, you kind of had to wait in line to, like, get up to take a picture. So I was, like, waiting. And then I got sick of it. So I finally got a couple good pictures, and then I left. And then I walked to the Coliseum, which is under construction right now. So that was kind of... but that was cool. I got to see, like, the outside of it. I didn't go inside because, like, tickets were, like, sold out. Plus, it's under construction. So it was just like, I'm okay. And then I went on this amazing food tour that I found on Viator. Again, it was super, super cheap. So, like, it was 5 different meals with a glass of wine at each meal for, like, I think it was, like, $100. And it's like, you're not going to get a dinner like that. And I got 5 and wine. They give you like a little sample of wine. And their wine is just so much better too. Like I don't really drink, especially like here. I don't like, they put like these preservatives and things in our wine. So, I basically gave up drinking back in 2015 time frame, 2016, somewhere in there. And I don't miss it, but I had to have wine from Italy. I'm sorry. And it was everything I thought it would be. And the food was just amazing. Like the pasta and the gelato and like even their appetizers. Like I'm like, oh my God. So again, food is forever ruined, and also coffee, because the coffee in Italy, oh my. Like, give me espresso. So good. And then that ended my Italy tour. So from Italy, I flew to Barcelona, Spain. And I found a really cool gym there. I got to bench. They had everything. Like they had monoliths, they had combo racks, they had everything. And it was super, super cool. And then I did the sightseeing thing. So the first day, the weather was crap. So like being out on the beach was not an option. So I walked around city center, and the architecture is so freaking cool in Barcelona. If you don't know, you need to look it up, because like the buildings, they have this cathedral. It's like, it's so whimsical. Like there's no like sharp edges. It's all like bubbly, wavy, like rounded corners, and it just looks just so unique. Even like the streets and the sidewalks are like different than what you see anywhere else, and the people were really cool. I will say, like, people in all of the countries are really cool. I would say Italy, they were probably the nicest as far as like the really like foreign countries. I mean, I love the UK. Like the UK, everybody's cool, but that, they speak English. But out of the non-speaking or non-English speaking countries, I would say Italy is probably the nicest. And then Spain, I would say, would be the next. But yeah, I absolutely love Barcelona. I got to spend the day on the beach the last day. It was so cool because, like, the weather was perfect, the water, just everything. It was the best way to end my trip. So I flew back to Scotland. Now we're coming back to Andy and his meet. So he runs GPC Scotland, and I had agreed to be a guest lifter in his meet. But this was before I knew that there was going to be a delay. So I flew from Barcelona to Edinburgh, Scotland on Friday night. And so I was supposed to catch a bus. So my flight was supposed to be in at 9. And then I was catching a bus at 10 p.m. and going to Glasgow, which was a little over an hour ride. Which, if everything had been fine, that would have been fine. But it wasn't fine. So I land in Edinburgh. And my bus is supposed to be there at 10. I got in on time on my flight. But I got outside and there was all these people waiting, and I'm like, what's going on? And they were like, well, our bus never showed up. And we're like, okay. And so then we wait, and then like the time when my bus was supposed to come came and went, and the bus didn't come. And I'm like, what the hell? And it's freezing in Scotland. Like, it already feels like winter time there, especially for someone like me that like lives in Atlanta. So we end up waiting, and the bus finally comes at freaking like 12:15 at night. And I'm like, okay, this sucks, but I'll just sleep on the bus. It's fine. And so we get to Glasgow about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. Again, it's raining and it's cold. And I'm freezing because I'm soaking wet from standing in the rain waiting for the bus. It's the first time. We get to the bus station. The inside of the bus station is closed. And I'm like, okay, well, my Airbnb is outside of town, so I'll just call an Uber or whatever. So I go to call an Uber or a cab, and they weren't running. And I'm like, what the hell? So I messaged the Airbnb, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, I'm freezing and I'm dying right now. And like, there was no way to get out there. And so I called like all these hostels around the area, and nobody had room. And then finally this one hotel was like, hey, you can come crash on the couch until you figure it out. Mind you, I'm supposed to do this competition at 9 a.m. And we're looking at this point, it's like 2:30 in the morning, almost 3 o'clock. She's like, we're about, I think it was a 12-minute walk or something from the bus station. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll be there. So I start walking, I get to this hotel, and sure enough, they have a couch for me. So I'm like ready to cry. And they told me, they're like, well, no cabs are running and everything's booked because it's a Jonas Brothers concert right now. I'm like, of course. So I sleep on this teeny little couch for about an hour, and it's like 4 a.m. The lady comes up to me and she said, well, we just had a cancellation, so we had a room open up. Do you want the room? And I'm like, yes, please, for the love of God. So I go and I sleep for like seriously like 2 hours. I get up, get a cab, I have coffee, and I show up, and I have like all borrowed stuff. So like I show up, I weigh in, and I'm like overweight. I normally compete at 165, and I was like 181. I'm like, it's fine. I ate a lot. Don't judge me. Don't mind you, I water cut for every meet, but like that's still heavy for me. 181 is a little heavy, but we ain't gonna talk about it. So they give me like a borrowed singlet. I had my lifting gear, luckily, and then I had these these chicken socks, chicken deadlift socks. Like, oh my god, like so funny. And I'm like half asleep through this entire meet. And I ended up squatting, what was it? I did 440. I benched 253, I think. Was it? No, 258. 258. And then I deadlifted 545. And the crowd went crazy. Like, that was apparently, like, Andy had me laughing. So, like, I'm like so tired. I can barely, like, my eyes were burning. I was so tired. And he starts making comments as I'm walking up to deadlift about the chicken socks. And I'm trying not to laugh. And I'm just like, oh my God, I just need to pull this because if I don't, I'm going to look like such a turd. And it was just so much fun because, like, he'd be like, America! And I ended up pulling the deadlift, and apparently that is the heaviest deadlift a female has done on Scottish soil. So you're welcome. America! It was the chicken socks for sure. And Andy's commentating, I should say. um, but from there, I went back up to Dundee and stayed with my friend again. I was training out of a couple gyms. I was at Dundee Strength and then also Arbroath, the warehouse, which was really, really cool. There was some really nice lifters there. They had a mono, like it was super, super cool. Plus Arbroath is just incredible. Like I went kayaking out there. There's caves. I was exploring. Like, of course I got rocks. But got ready for the meet in Poland there, which was really, really cool. So recovered, got ready to head to Poland, and that was quite the experience. So I flew into a tiny airport, because again, Skyscanner. And apparently there was some sort of like bomb threat or something, because as soon as I got my luggage, they like made everybody evacuate, and they like pushed us into the backfield, and there was like sirens going off, and then like the military showed up, and I'm like, help. And like I ended up calling some of my friends, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. I don't know. I've never been here, and I think we're getting invaded. And so luckily I had a couple lifters and friends that like kind of helped me navigate, which luckily I learned to navigate even in non-English speaking countries. Like again, chat GPT is super like helpful, but there's translator apps. Once you learn like public transportation, like even if you don't speak the language or you don't know how to read it, like you can just kind of figure it out. Like it's fine. Like I use Google Maps a lot, and that was really helpful too. But anyway, so they shut down transportation for like hours. So like I flew in at like, I think it was like 3 in the afternoon, and I did not get to my Airbnb until like after 10. It was miserable. And I was water cutting. So like I'm peeing, I'm mad, I'm hungry, like bleh. And so we get through that, and then, you know, I still have in the back of my mind what happened at ABS about bombing out. So I'm like, crap, like, we got to have a good meet. And I show up for the meet, September 28th. I had Jay, who is actually the head of ABS, handling me, which he is absolutely phenomenal. Like, he just made my day. We were so good at gaming that, you know, I was able to go into that meet and not have to go full send, which is ideal. Like being able to play it smart. So like I wasn't going for PRs. I wasn't going for like max lifts. I was going to win the freaking money and come home a champion. And that's exactly what happened. Like Jay and I freaking gamed it out perfectly. You know, my squat wasn't even close to what I normally open with, and I finished with a bench PR, which was cool, with more in the tank. And then my deadlift was a little bit lower than normal. So I think it was a 468 squat, 270 bench, and I hit a 540 deadlift because that's all that we needed for the win. And I walked home with $2,600. Well, I didn't walk. I flew home, actually. So that was really cool. And then after that meet, I got to travel and go hang out in Warsaw for a day and just see the history there. Like, oh my God. And the food, like pierogies, so good. But yeah, I really, really loved Poland. The XPC was a cool event. It was different. Like the mono was different, and just it's cool to see like how different countries run the meets. You know, we went from an English speaking meet in Dublin to non-English speaking. So, and I was one of the only Americans, and I was like, what do I do? But it ended up being really cool. So that was a fun meet. And yeah, come back to the States and just got back to training. I have really been, looking back on everything, I've been coaching for over 10 years behind the scenes. I started out with personal training. I actually used to coach gymnastics to inner city school kids when I was in college. I did remedial PT when I was in the military because I was always very fit. So I helped soldiers that would fail their PT test or were overweight. I would help them lose weight. I would help them get in better shape so that they could pass the PT test so they didn't get kicked out of the military. And then after I got out of the military, I ran into some serious depression and I became overweight myself. I was over 200 pounds and miserable. And then I got my life back together for a little bit before this last ex. And I found myself in CrossFit and I became a CrossFit coach. I'm L2 certified and that was my first love and that's what saved my life initially before I came to powerlifting. And, the pandemic kind of launched me. So before the pandemic, I was coaching CrossFit classes, but I was also working in a couple local gyms, commercial gyms, doing personal training. I worked mainly with elderly, which was like super cool because I love rehab and I love watching people go from like having like a shit like quality of life to just thriving. So that's actually kind of where I got my start. And then from CrossFit and the, Gen Pop, I transitioned to powerlifting. So now I kind of do a little bit of everything. I've worked with marathon runners. I work with powerlifters, gymnasts, CrossFitters, strongmen, elderly, and just like Gen Pop, like busy moms that like don't put themselves first. Like, cause that was me. Like I would put everybody ahead of me. And that's like back when I was not taking care of myself. And the biggest thing that I could have done is put myself first. And that's what I've been doing this whole year. This is something that I've never done before. And like getting out of my own way, healing, growing, thriving. So 2024 could have literally killed me. And instead it was my rebirth. And I am so excited for 2025. We're just a couple hours away to see what that brings because 2024, like I said, started out like a dumpster fire, but ended, even though I'm still alone, but it's a better mindset. I choose to be alone because I choose to heal. I choose to love myself, learn to love myself, and learn that I can do anything I put my mind to. So that is kind of my 2024 going into 2025 message, going over the recap of the crazy situation that launched me into the pro scene in powerlifting and coaching. And now I get to work with men and women all over the world, all different needs, all different goals. And I can't wait to continue to grow together. And if you are out there and you enjoy this story, like, share, comment. Also, reach out to me. I am taking clients for the 2025 year. I have a really big giveaway going on right now. I'm doing a 12-week challenge. I'm looking for 10 people that are ready to commit. And I'm giving away over $350 worth of free products from Legion Athletics and also Thorne Supplements to the winner, whoever is the most consistent and smashes their goals during the next 12 weeks. It's going to be starting on January 6th. If you sign up now before the 6th, you get a little bit of a head start against the competition. So don't wait. Reach out today. I'll include the link in the description below, and have a happy new year, guys.